Good morning, Western Washington, and happy Tuesday. I'm Matthew Fab with Western Washington Weather, and we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got the heat wave, we've got fires with some visible smoke across the area, and we have this summer atmospheric river coming up in just a few days. So let's dive right into it. Starting here with the satellite imagery, you can see it is mostly clear across all of Western Washington this morning, but a couple of things to point out. We have the Bear Gulch fire still producing a lot of smoke across parts of Mason County and around Hood Canal. They're moving into Kitsap County a little bit there early this morning. And then we have the Mount Underwood fire, this new fire on Vancouver Island. You can see that smoke is pushing south from around Port Alberni there all the way as far south right now as the Newport area there off the Oregon coast. Thankfully not causing too many impacts right now, but we will definitely be dealing with some smoke issues from the Mount Underwood fire and the Bear Gulch fire, in addition to the heat and then the upcoming rain. So let's start here with some heat alerts. We still have this heat advisory in effect through 10 p.m. tonight for most of Western Washington. Fire weather watches and heat alerts in effect for parts of Eastern Washington, and then that extreme heat warning in effect for Southwest Washington as well. And now taking a look at high temperatures yesterday on Monday, you can see the Seattle area mostly in the mid 80s to upper 80s, right around Seattle, a few low 90s, and then from Seattle southward, those highs in the low to mid 90s. Seattle northward is some of that offshore flow. Places like Bellingham got up toward 88 degrees there. So pretty warm even in some areas that don't usually get that heat. And then moving southward, we can see that Portland, Longview, those areas again had a really hot day, 99 in Portland, 99 in Longview, and a similar thing is expected today. Even on the coast, it was pretty hot, 95 degrees there in Quileute, just west of Forks. That is a new all-time record for the date. Even had highs in the low 80s there around Ocean Shores, 76 in Long Beach, 82 in Astoria. So just a very hot day across the region. And as many of you noticed, it was a very warm night last night by Pacific Northwest standards. You can see the Seattle area there with lows only getting into the mid to upper 60s right here on this map. And then even outside of Seattle, a little bit, Tacoma in the upper 60s, even up in Bellingham here, up in the mid 50s to low 60s. And then going down into Portland, just really warmed down from Longview down to Portland. Those lows only getting into the upper 60s to low 70s. And that is something we'll see to a lesser extent tonight, but some of that marine air will come in and start to cool us down a little bit. So let's dive right into all that. Starting here with the overall pattern, we have this ridge and it's breaking down here. The ridge is breaking down, ending the heat wave after today. And we're going to introduce a lot of cooling tomorrow with this troughing to our north. And then as we go through the end of this week, we start to get this atmospheric river pattern here going into Friday. That's going to bring a large amount of rain into Western Washington and British Columbia and even parts of Oregon as well over the weekend, Friday into Saturday there. With this trough here, this ridge here, you get the atmospheric river right in the middle. And then that troughing kind of hangs out and then starts to sag south, and we'll kind of see what happens as we go into Sunday and Monday with that troughing still present off the coast. So starting here with temperatures, we can take a look at high temperatures for today, and you can see it's going to be the hottest day of the bunch for most of Western Washington. From Seattle northward, you can expect highs in the low to mid 80s. Areas near the water may remain in the upper 70s. Areas east of I-5 likely in the upper 80s to low 90s. From Seattle southward, highs in the low to mid 90s today. Areas right near Puget Sound may stay in the upper 80s, but I would not be surprised to see some highs in the 95 to 96 degree range for some of the valleys, some of the foothills as well. And then from Olympia and Shelton southward, those highs are in the mid to upper 90s. 96 in Olympia, Chehalis, 97 in Kelso, and then 99 to 100 again around Vancouver and Portland. And on the coast, we cool a little bit with some onshore flow returning, but those highs still remain in the mid-70s to low 80s inland there. Beaches likely in the low to mid-70s again. So just really nice, but also pretty warm. And then as we go into tomorrow, take a look at that huge cool down. Highs in the lowlands around Seattle and Tacoma and Olympia dropping all the way to the mid to upper 70s. Seattle northward highs dropping into the low to mid 70s, the coast dropping all the way to the mid 60s, and even down around Portland, highs dropping from near 100 to 80, the low to mid 80s there. And then going into Thursday, we cool down further, upper 60s to mid 70s across most of the region, still the mid 60s on the coast. And then Friday, we cool down with that atmospheric river coming in, highs all the way down to the mid to upper 60s for most of Western Washington and around 70 for the Willamette Valley. And then just want to point out again those low temperatures. So you can see that tonight into tomorrow morning, we will cool down more than we did last night. Those lows will get into the low 60s for most of Western Washington, with the exception of the Seattle Metro, some areas around Bellingham and northward, and then Southwest Washington around Portland, where some of those lows may stay in the mid 60s. Then as we go into Thursday morning, take a look as we get back to more seasonable lows in the mid 50s to low 60s, even a few low 50s out there. So yeah, we just looked at that low temperatures. Now time to look at that big change in the temperatures from Tuesday into Wednesday. This is the European model. And as we go into Wednesday afternoon, so look at that. From today to tomorrow, you're going to have highs dropping 20 plus degrees across parts of Western Washington. 15 to 20 degrees is a pretty good bet in terms of how much the high temperatures will drop across the region, including Seattle and the Puget Sound area. So that is pretty interesting to see. And that is just ushering in that change ahead of our atmospheric river. Now, talking about that atmospheric river, looking at the European model, 6-hour precipitation type here. You see we stay dry with some showers possibly Wednesday evening on the coast, and then even around parts of the lowlands there, but nothing much. But then take a look as we go into Thursday. Look at this rain starting off Vancouver Island, and then it just slams into Vancouver Island to Western Washington. And you see that atmospheric river signature there. There's that heavier precipitation being wrung out by the mountains, bringing some precipitation to the lowlands as well. And look at how it just strengthens there as we go into Friday night and hangs out across the area all the way into Saturday with a bunch of lingering showers as well, and then possibly more showers with that troughing remaining offshore into Sunday and Monday. Now you can see it here on precipitable water. This is how much water vapor is in the atmosphere. And as we go through Thursday into Friday, you can just see this plume of moisture slamming into Western Washington as we go into Friday there, and look in Friday evening, just all that moisture is slamming right into Western Washington. And because it's summer and it's a little bit warmer, we're able to tap into that subtropical moisture a little bit better. This thing is really juiced, just full of moisture slamming right into the area. It's going to be humid, it's going to be muggy, and it's going to be rainy. And it's not going to feel like August in the Northwest, that's for sure. We don't usually get setups like this in August. We usually get atmospheric rivers like this starting in late September into October and November. So it is interesting to see this happening all the way here in the middle of August. And we'll definitely be watching this very closely over the next few days. You can see how it lingers and then pushes south into Saturday there. Now, taking a look at the North America or the national blend of models here, this kind of takes all the forecast models and gives you an average. And look at some of these precipitation totals. You're looking at 1.5 inches for areas around Seattle and southward there. And north of Seattle, looking at 1.5 to 2 inches. Coast looking at 2 to 2.5 inches, and the mountains potentially 2 to 3 inches. So this is really abnormal for this time of year. The European model mostly backs this up, drops the totals a little bit for Seattle to about an inch for Seattle and Tacoma. The mountains, though, still going with that 2 to 3 inches, maybe even up to 4 inches for some of the mountains. And then areas Seattle Northwood, 1 to 1.5 inches. You can see how it kind of cuts off a little bit as you go south through parts of Oregon, right around the Washington-Oregon borders, where that kind of cuts off a little bit. And you get a little bit less rain, about a half inch there in Portland, and areas south getting even less than that, toward a quarter inch. But bottom line for Western Washington, this is going to be basically all of August's rain total and then a whole lot more in just over 24 hours. So we have to watch this very closely for any impacts that it could bring, and we'll be looking at that closely here over the next few days and the next few videos here on the channel. But I do want to switch gears a little bit after this here. This is from the University of California, San Diego, and this is basically atmospheric river prediction. And we can see we're getting atmospheric river category 2 in August, which is pretty crazy to see. That does not usually happen. So now switching gears a little bit, Bear Gulch Fire, a ton more activity on it yesterday. You can see all along the flank. These are heat signatures that it's picking up here on the watch duty fire map there. Over 100 acres burned yesterday, up to 5,776, and it is continuing to burn there with the dry conditions today and the winds kicking it around as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we do have that new fire, the Mount Underwood fire, right here on Vancouver Island. And so as we look here at the vertically integrated smoke, this is smoke aloft. Both of these fires are going to be very active and very visible as we go through the day today. By 1 p.m., the Mount Underwood fire is already producing a huge plume of smoke, and you can see the Bear Gulch fire starting to do the same. And then as we get to about 5 to 6 p.m. here, so this is 6 p.m., huge amount of smoke coming off that Mount Underwood fire, just blowing straight toward parts of Western Washington. And look at the Bear Gulch fire, lots of smoke blowing toward the Kitsap Peninsula, Hood Canal area, Shelton, and then toward the metro areas as well. As we go through this evening, take a look at how by the time I'm going to stop this here, 9 p.m., you got a huge amount of smoke coming off the Mount Underwood fire, and that is mostly going to be smoke aloft, but it's going to be very, very hazy skies over parts of the San Juans toward Whidbey Island, Whatcom, Skagit, Snohomish counties, and then Clallam and Jefferson counties as well. And then take a look at the Bear Gulch fire, bringing a lot of smoke aloft over Seattle and Tacoma and Olympia. And that just all pushes east as we go overnight into Wednesday morning. And then as we go into the day Wednesday, these fires will bring more smoke. Again, look at that pretty concentrated plume right off the Bear Gulch fire there as we go into Wednesday evening, blowing that smoke toward Olympia and Tacoma, parts of Pierce County and Mason County as well. And then the Mount Underwood fire here, bringing some smoke toward Vancouver, BC, parts of Vancouver Island, and extreme northwest Washington. And then as we go into Wednesday evening, this is 10 p.m. Wednesday, you see the Bear Gulch fire smoke starts to diminish, but that Mount Underwood fire smoke kind of hangs out around the Strait of Georgia and then starts to push north and east as the winds shift as we go into early Thursday morning. Now, taking a look at surface smoke, you can see we got that surface smoke near Hood Canal this morning, and we'll take a look at that on the air quality map here in just a moment. And that surface smoke from Mount Underwood stays pretty concentrated on Vancouver Island, but then you can see as we go into this evening, some of that surface smoke spreads around a little bit. Parts of the Olympic Peninsula could be dealing with some areas from Olympia southward might get a little bit of smoke. And then you can see as the smoke starts to push east overnight, those higher elevations where that smoke plume is at that level, parts of the mountains there, Cascades starting to get some surface smoke as we go overnight. Might get a little bit of surface smoke around parts of Whidbey Island, Snohomish, and Skagit counties from the Bear Gulch fire as we go into Wednesday morning. And then you can see as the fires produce more plumes as we go into Wednesday night, that smoke remains pretty bad in some areas of Mason County and Hood Canal. So we'll have to watch that closely. And then as we go into very early Thursday morning, some of that smoke off the Mount Underwood fire starts to impact places like Nanaimo and then over toward Vancouver and barely the San Juans there as well. So definitely a lot to watch with the fires too. And then you can see this yesterday. So I have been up in the Semiamu area yesterday there, and you can see, look at some of the pyrocumulus coming off that Mount Underwood fire. This was just a few hours after it started last night, about 8:30 to 9:15 p.m. And you can see just that plume. This fire was just really popping off yesterday, and it will continue to pop off over the next couple of days here as it continues to spread rapidly on central Vancouver Island there. And then taking a look at the air quality map real quick. I'm going to let this load here. You can see where that air quality is really hazardous this morning around Lake Cushman, Hoodsport, up toward Lilliwaup and Hama there, up toward 200 to 500, even 600 plus air quality around Hood Canal. They're very hazardous. If you are in that area, do not be outside or have your windows open if you can help it until this smoke starts to dissipate. But outside of that, you're getting a little bit degraded in Shelton and over toward Union and Belfair there, but otherwise looking at mostly good air quality across the region. We're dealing with a little bit of bad air quality on the coast there, not really sure why. But otherwise looking pretty good, although this is subject to change at times based on how some of that surface smoke blows around the area. So yeah, tons to talk about in today's video and a lot to talk about over the next few days as well. So the best way to stay tuned is to subscribe here to Western Washington Weather. Follow me on Blue Sky on Twitter and the Western Washington Weather Facebook group. All the links to these are in the description below. And stay tuned to these social media channels as I post a lot more updates about all this stuff going on. And I will be sure to talk to you all tomorrow.